Welcome to the 4Cs podcast for SAP Business One, brought to you by Third Wave Business Systems. I'm Mike Ham, and my colleague Tyson McMurrin, bringing you a podcast that takes a deeper dive into the ERP system that is SAP Business One. We'll be hosting product experts and members of the Business One community, helping you, a Business One user, get the most out of SAP Business One. Hello and welcome. Welcome to episode 4 of the 4Cs podcast. I'm Mike Ham, and with me as always, my colleague Tyson McMurrin. And today we're here to talk about core and connection. Real time and the challenge with disconnection with real time. And today we'll go over what are some common areas of disconnection, what to look out for, and talk about the importance of that real-time connection to your core. And let's jump right into the quote here. SAP Business One connects and streamlines key operational processes, providing real-time insights for actionable decisions that drive profitable growth. That's a tremendous quote in talking about what we hold most important, and that's the core. It talks about the main capabilities of Business One. Tyson, what's this quote mean to you today?
Mike, I've been doing implementations of SAP Business One since 2007 and seen hundreds of companies, implement and grow. And this quote really kind of jumps out to the exact thing that SAP Business One does. And that is really giving you the ability to define your processes, giving you the ability to access information in a real-time fashion. And because you have that, what it really allows you to do from a business perspective is really kind of pivot many of the companies that we've implemented and that I've worked with, seen the growth and seen the number of employees they've grown to, the number of locations they've grown to, the revenue growth, the strategic growth, acquiring suppliers, acquiring competitors. All of this comes from probably two things, I think, Mike. And one of them is really kind of what I would say is selecting Business One as the core system, that strong building block. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean with SAP Business One at the core of all of your information, inherently there's a lot of best practice and streamlined operational processes. So for example, quote to cash workflow, or service call workflow, or production order workflow. And all of these inherent workflows that are within SAP Business One, they really do allow you to kind of pivot and grow your business, because now instead of working in the business, you can start to and feeding information into a system or into disparate systems, and never being able to actually see what that information means. Having it all in the core, being SAP Business One, allows us to look at that. But Mike, the SAP Business One at the core, we still have 3 other C's that are part of our podcast.
Absolutely, Tyson. I wholeheartedly agree with what you said, and you talked about seeing the organizations rise up over your career. I think that's really a testament to SAP's scalability, right? It can grow with you. And that's one of the things when selecting your core is something to keep in mind, something that's going to have that ability to grow with you. But as you grow, and I think you grow because of what they say here in the quote, providing the real-time insights for actionable decisions that drive profitable growth. So you're seeing these companies rise up, right? You're seeing these companies that now have access to real-time data based on the connections that they've tied back to SAP Business One. You see them rise up, right? SAP's growing with them. Their insights are growing with them. Along the way, and we talk about this, is staying, we could call it staying vigilant. with your connections. Are there disconnections now that I've grown, now that I've scaled my business, now that I've used these actionable insights, right? This real-time data across my organization, I've grown now. Are there other areas that I'm missing? Are there other disconnections? What are some things that I want to now pay attention to since implementing, or what are some things that I want to keep top of mind if I'm thinking of implementing while I grow? So I guess we could dive right into, that's a great transition over to what we're going to talk about next, is those disconnections, right?
Mike, I mentioned that there's these blind spots within your system, and
yep.
The nice thing about it is that there's ways to kind of overcome these disconnections. So as you talked about, the journey of either your implementation and leveraging SAP Business One and your processes, it's forever evolving and changing, but it's important to really kind of be aware that while you have this information flow within the SAP Business One area, there's still information sharing between people that are going to be outside of your system of record, and that's where we can start to see things that are not going to be in lockstep with what's in SAP Business One. And this is where we have spreadsheets, database extracts, and collaboration sometimes, where we need to either gather an input or gain an approval, or provide some insights into things further to the workflow of the actual transaction. And sometimes that workflow gets interrupted, or the disconnection happens just because we don't want to necessarily slow down, for example, the production floor, and task them with going into finding a production order, right-clicking, issuing components, looking up the component, entering in the quantity. So some of these areas of disconnection can be just because we don't want to slow down operations. And there's tools that kind of allow us to, overcome, these challenges, and to provide, that scalable access and simple interaction. But, the examples of disconnection are really kind of around the collaboration, or just wanting the users to have control of that, or not wanting to slow down operations because of that data capture. So what does that mean? Well, sometimes you're competing against a clipboard, right? But that disconnection has downstream effects. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but really the areas of disconnection come down to data inputs, Mike, and those data inputs could be from internal people, or they could be from external pieces. So, for example, your e-commerce site, or your B2B portal. Not having that integrated into Business One yet. So it comes in as an email, or somebody logs into the back end of the e-commerce and then keys the orders in. And that's fine. But as you grow, those are areas that maybe you want to look at, solving that. Same goes for like receiving. Maybe you have some quality control steps before receiving the item into inventory. You want to do those quality control steps because you don't have like non-conformance processes in SAP Business One. Same with delivery. So a lot of our customers don't want to create a delivery document before the goods are actually physically delivered to the client. So because there might be changes, and you don't want to lock out the original sales order. So there's these downstream consequences of disconnection. Shop floor data collection. We don't want to slow down operations, right? Field service, that's a huge one where when you're disconnected with that, there's chances for, oh, I forgot to write down that item, or, oh yeah, I used that item as well, or I don't know how long it took me to do that. So those areas of disconnection, you're competing with somebody turning in a triplicate form. Sales reps and agents that are out in the field, sometimes it's just easier for them to email in the order to an order entry. But again, we have this disconnection now of, is the person entering the order entering it right? Did the salesperson select the right item when they were typing it out? So transposition of information creates a lot of areas of disconnection, or transposition causes a lot of data error, and that data error isn't the transposition, it's really because we're disconnected from the core, right? Product development and intercompany transactions are another one where there's these disconnects and also these time lags. So just finding ways to be able to deal with these things on a more streamlined basis becomes something that we want to be aware of. So how do we find these areas of disconnection within your business? Because again, this is just a list, Mike, of the typical areas of disconnection where we at Third Wave kind of identify and help either during the implementation in drawing the process out so that it really kind of streamlines not only the process but also the data capture points and simplifies it. But the roadblocks and the slowing down of information I talked about a little bit in this disconnection area, and Mike, I know in your former world in the Biz One space, all of the products and all of the speakers that were generally there at the conference were kind of addressing these areas of disconnection, weren't they?
When we get these sessions and these speakers, it's often overcoming a common challenge like this, and a lot of them were areas of disconnection, right? What is that area of disconnection, whether it be in accounting, whether it be in sales? The biggest thing was, hey, we did this on paper, or we did this outside the core, and here's how we automated it, or here's how we brought, more eyeballs to this data capture. And the result was a success because, accounting gained better visibility, or, sales gained better visibility and was able to, take care of a customer better because of this, added information that they wouldn't have seen, they wouldn't have picked up on. And it all came from tying that back to the core.
Yeah, right. And Mike, the quote, had the word growth in it, and a lot of times that's generally why people are looking to SAP Business One, is because they're on this growth trajectory, and e-commerce and omni-channel selling, trying to manage that without a core system is near impossible.
Oh yeah, good luck.
But having that information connected in a real-time fashion is really, really important, because an omni-channel seller, for example, has a limited amount of product available to a broad spectrum of selling platforms. Yep. And making sure that you're identifying trends of products so that when to reorder things. so you don't have stockouts. Making sure that you're not overselling so that you're matching your fulfillment. All those are areas of where a disconnect can really start to kind of slow down your ability to kind of react to what's happening in the market space. And I think that's, Mike, where that growth in that quote becomes really key. And you were talking about the speakers and at the conference, and generally, the story is around, just getting out of what some people will call Excel hell, right?
Yep. It's a success story, right? It's a success story about how we were in this problem, and that looks different for everyone. I think I'd love to get your take on how a company, because there's so many different companies that use Business One, right? Everyone's problem, everyone's Excel hell is going to look different. How do I, as a Business One customer, right? I see this session, but they're not in the same industry as me. But I'm doing something similar. How do I, in my own company, how do I locate these areas of disconnections? Because they're not all going to look the same to every company. Do you have any tips, ideas, tricks on how to locate these, Tyson?
Look for where people are entering information and it's not into Business One.
That's
look for Excel. Look for somebody working in an Excel spreadsheet and say, what are you doing?
Yep.
Look for triplicate forms, and Mike, if you just go to the next slide here, really what it comes down to is where the people and the process aren't in line with the system of record.
Okay.
And when you're looking at those, there's a couple of things to do. One is, like I said, look for the spreadsheets, look for the triplicate forms, look for the rekeying of information. So, e-commerce integration is a good example of, well, what are you doing there? Why are you, why do you need two monitors? Oh, well, I have the orders on one screen and I have to enter them in the other. Okay, well, how many of these are you doing a day, right? So now we can start to put some tangible benefit around that. And Mike, you've heard me talk about, sometimes the cost of a process isn't necessarily going to be, the ROI cost, but it could be a morale cost as well. So, look at those processes where, the employees are going, ugh, I got to do my expense report, or oh, I got to go and pull down the EDI orders and key them in, or oh, I got to fax this over to our supplier, our forecast. Well, hold on a second, right? So those are just really looking at and not judging what the people are doing, Mike, because that's the other thing is people are proud of their job and they're proud of what they're doing, and it's not that you want to replace their job. It's just we want to make sure that we get to that real time, Mike, because the upstream effect of that is tremendous, because getting visibility to the data faster is really critical. So that's one thing to look at. Look for those areas of rekeying, exporting, triplicate forms, anything that's slowing down getting the information into Business One from the source. Okay. Look for processes where we're pulling information from the source and emailing it or faxing it out to somebody else. So forecasts or item inventory for sales reps so that they know the inventory that they have. Look for those areas. But the other thing to look for is disagreement in regards to information within your organization. So this is where you show up to the meeting and you ask what the sales are month to date and you get 5 different answers.
Yes.
Why did that happen? Oh, well, Tom just booked a new order, so he's already got that entered into his month to date sales on the Excel spreadsheet. But that order is not entered into the system yet. Oh,
yep.
Well, now we just got two pieces, right? Now we heard the order's not entered into the system. Well, why isn't the order entered into the system? Well, has Tom emailed it to the user? Has Tom entered it into Business One yet? Are we still finalizing maybe a couple of items on that order? Those are some areas. The other area is, open orders. So, what's our fulfillment look like, and what's our shipments today look like? Well, if that number is a different number that the shipping doc says, we sent out 600 orders today, but SAP Business One's only showing that you sent out 300. Well, where's the disconnect? Why haven't these other orders been marked as delivered? Oh, well, we couldn't close that. We couldn't create the delivery document on those because we got a negative inventory warning. So we need to turn on negative inventory so we can do that. Well, no. Well, why is it negative inventory? Oh, well, Tom in purchasing hasn't received all the goods in yet, but we shipped the goods out. Well, there's an area of disconnect, Mike.
Yep.
Right. So that's what we want to look for is where we have different numbers, rekeying of information, dumping of information out. Mike, the other area to look into is when you're looking at these processes and you're trying to help the users and myself as a consultant would go in and say, well, why aren't you using the MRP wizard? And sometimes I would get, well, what's that? So then, yep. so sometimes that's just where, maybe we need to turn on or maybe we need to start using something within Business One that we didn't know about, or during the implementation, we didn't want to go there because the information wasn't there yet. So as a consultant, sometimes, we would say, well, why aren't you using the MRP wizard? And you get the, well, what's that? So that's where, understanding and leveraging, why am I creating this purchase order manually and trying to consolidate the on-hand inventory, what I have purchased already, and what the forecast is, and trying to consolidate all that and figure it out in an Excel spreadsheet when the MRP wizard can do that for me in the SAP Business One core. So that's one response that I would get is what's that. The other response is, oh yeah, I tried that, but man, the numbers that it gave just weren't right. Well, what do you mean the numbers it gave just weren't right? Well, it said that I should only order 200 units, and I know that I need to order 2,000 units. Well, why did it do that? Oh, well, because our on-hand inventory was skewed. Well, why was it skewed? Oh, well, because the production orders hadn't done the issue to production yet. So now there's another disconnect, Mike, right? So when you're looking at these processes, you gotta peel the onion sometimes in order to look at it. And again,
that's you don't adage, right? You ask why 5 times.
That's right. Why? And again, identifying it isn't that hard, Mike. Correcting it, sometimes takes a little bit of analysis and looking into better ways of doing things, and maybe that's maybe that's where you reach out to somebody like myself and ask questions, or maybe you're looking at tools, and we'll do some other podcasts that can talk about better ways to do this. And I know in one of the last podcasts I talked about looking at swim lanes and putting some of these processes into swim lanes. So we've talked about some of the tools that you can use to do this, and you can throw that into the show notes. The prior episode that we talked about that. We talked about looking at the customer experience. We've talked about a lot of this in the past, and we'll talk about more about. We'll talk more about this in future episodes as well. But what does this look like when you actually implement this, Mike? When you start looking at these disconnected areas, and again, you don't have to do this all at once. So let's look at what Rifle Paper did and what their objectives were.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to take a look at, this is one of our customers. right, that went through exactly what we've been talking about here, and has done things the right way. Tyson, talk about how they did that, and what are some of the most important parts of what they've done, and how they established priority of those things.
Yeah, so all the stuff that I was talking about, growing company, adding items, bunch of spreadsheets, trying to keep up with inventory and order entry in a QuickBooks system, and just had all these different touch points, and they were working hard just to feed the information, and when they chose SAP Business One, it was really to streamline the inventory and client and supplier, and centralize all of that, and be able to leverage all of the modules within SAP Business One to really kind of get a handle on the planning side of their business, and getting more information. And on the resolution side of it, they deployed SAP Business One as an application to deal with inventory and clients and suppliers, and the planning and production requirements and purchasing requirements. But they also needed integration, Mike. They needed to integrate, so they needed to connect to e-commerce. They needed to connect to credit card processing. They needed to connect for fulfillment, and that's where some of the other C's came into play during their implementation. So their implementation, they implemented in looking at the processes, streamlining the processes, and really kind of making sure that the process was sound, and then going on to the next one. And now all of a sudden, because you trust all your processes, all those processes, have the connection, they have the communication, and they have the control, and all that information's in the core system. So, we've covered off the 4 C's, Mike. Now we trust that data. Yep. Well, now you can really kind of, get true performance data at your fingertips. So dashboards become something that really kind of became a powerful thing for them to be able to see trends, and identify trends, and action upon those trends. And
there's that real-time data and the actionable insights.
And that's key.
There's the quote right there.
And that is exactly it, Mike. It's that real-time information wasn't just the core, right? It was looking at the processes, looking at the connections, looking at the way that you communicate within your supply chain, and tying all that together, and rounding it all off really allows you to really kind of attain that profitable growth, which is in the quote as well.
Absolutely. This is the quote played out in real life on what SAP Business One does. Here's a perfect example of a customer using Business One, tying in, like you said, e-commerce, credit card processing, fulfillment, tying in all those things, giving it access, giving those across the organization access to that in the form of real-time data through those dashboards. And they've been successful with that, and they've continued to grow. And that's because they set this up right. That's because they used SAP Business One. They connected properly. They communicated properly. The control is in place. Those are the 4 C's in action. But really highlighting and driving home that importance of what are we doing with the connections, and what good comes out of it, right? What good comes out of the real-time access to that data, organizational wide.
That's right.
Excellent. Well, Tyson, I want to thank you, as always, for joining us and giving us a deep dive into what that looks like, the importance of core, the importance of connection today. And I want to thank you all for listening. Can check us out on LinkedIn. Go visit our company page. and what we can do for you, how we can help you with the 4 C's. So I appreciate all you listeners out there, and thank you. And until next time.
Stay safe, stay connected.